Experiment time. Today I'm going to see if increasing hydration affects the crumb structure of your sourdough bread. This is a very common belief. Hi, I'm Sune and I'm a food geek. Today I'm going to experiment with increasing hydration in sourdough bread and see if it affects open crumb formation. The rationale behind this is that the more water there is, the more extensible the dough. Pair that with a strong and good gluten development, there's more wiggle room for the yeast to blow up bubbles of air inside of a dough pocket. That's the theory anyway, so we'll have to see how that plays out. If you're new to this channel, I bake a lot of sourdough bread and I make delicious food from all over the world. If you want to see more of this content, please join me by subscribing and ringing the bell so you won't miss any future videos. The dough that I'm building today uses 100% bread flour, as we already know from previous experiments that the more whole grain, the tighter the crumb. The flour that I'm using is made from a Canadian hard wheat grain milled in Italy by Caputo. It's very strong with 14.5 grams of protein per 100 grams. It also has a medium absorption, so even if the dough is very strong, it's still super extensible. I've made bread with up to 100% hydration with this flour. The hydrations will be 70%, 75%, 80%, and 85%. The inoculation, meaning the amount of starter and baker's percentage, is 20%. The salt content is kept at 2%. If you'd like to support the channel, please consider becoming a member at Patreon. You can also buy some merch or use the links in the description for tools and ingredients. Those were the words. This is the experiment.
This is not a recipe, it's an experiment. If you'd like to bake these breads, I have an entire process described in my master recipe, linked in the description. First, I mix everything for each dough. 70% hydration. 75% hydration. 80% hydration. 85% hydration. Then I leave them all for an hour for the gluten to develop. Then I do the first set of stretch and folds. The second set of stretch and folds. and the third set of stretch and folds. After the third set, I check the window pane of each dough. Okay, for the 7%, I jumped the gun a bit and put it in the proofing container first. They all look good, so I put them in my proofer, set to 30 degrees Celsius, 86 degrees Fahrenheit, until they've grown 25%. When they've grown, I take the dough out of all the containers. Then I pre-shape each dough into a loose ball. Then I let them rest for 20 minutes on the kitchen counter. Then it's time to final shape them all. I flour the tops. And proceed with the shaping. After they're all shaped, I put them in the fridge for an overnight retard. The next morning, I proceed to heat my oven for an hour, and then it's time to bake. I dust the bottom so that the bread can easily slide off the peel when putting it in the oven. I flip it onto the peel. I score it. and then I bake it. After 20 minutes, I remove the lid of the Dutch oven and lower the heat and bake for another 25 minutes. Then I take the bread out of the oven and let it cool on a wire rack. The other 3 breads were baked the exact same way. After they're cooled down, I cut each bread to reveal the crumb. But first, let's have a look at the crust and see what increasing hydration does to it. A moderate amount of blisters. A nice amount of blisters. A wild amount of blisters. And a crazy amount of blisters. Pretty cool, huh? Well, let's get on with the cutting. And let's see them all together. So I don't really feel like the cross-cut is representative for an entire bread, so I grabbed 4 consecutive slices from each bread, and you can get a better idea of the crumb.
So it certainly looks like hydration isn't a major factor when it comes to baking sourdough bread with open crumb. I know that open crumb is somewhat polarizing as a subject because some people think it's stupid because the jam falls through the bread, but others think it's the end goal and the most gorgeous type of crumb that you can produce. So if it isn't the hydration, the size, the final proof, or the amount of starter, what is it then? Well, as always, it's a combination of things. The top factor is the flour that you're using. The second factor is the fermentation. It has to be spot on. And the third factor is gluten development. You have to have it maxed out. I could devise experiments for all of those. Which one would you like to see? Let me know in the comments. I hope you learned something today. See you next time.